Donkey Kong is a classic trilogy of arcade games. Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., and Donkey Kong 3. Oh yeah, there's also Donkey Kong Jr. Math. A lot of people nowadays know Donkey Kong Jr. Math as the ridiculously expensive NES game that no one actually wants to play. But did you know that it was actually part of its own trilogy? It was part of a trilogy of educational games using characters from the 3 arcade games that served as the launch titles for the Famicom, the Japanese version of the NES, in 1983. Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., and Popeye. It included Donkey Kong Jr. Math and the Japan-only Popeye's English play, a game that attempts to teach English to Japanese kids and fails, but I'm not getting into that here. Anyways, you may have noticed that this proclaimed trilogy only consisted of 2 games. Well, that's because the 3rd game, which you should have correctly assumed was based on Donkey Kong, was never released. Donkey Kong no Ongak Asobi, or Donkey Kong's music play, was originally teased with screenshots in a 1983 Nintendo flyer, which I'll come back to later. This 100% confirms that a prototype of the game existed. Obviously, from the title, you can infer that it was meant to be a music teaching tool. It actually looks more visually distinct from its source material than the other games in the trilogy. The blue background certainly helps. These screenshots seem to come from the game's music quiz mode, as it's called in the title screen. The other mode is called Donkey Band, and it seems that the characters from the original game, plus Junior, would be in a band together, with DK on guitar, Junior on drums, and Pauline on vocals. Meanwhile, Mario is on piano. And I need to rant real quick. Mario's original name was not Jumpman. He was only called that in the English arcade instructions. His real original name was Mr. Video. And in the prototype phase of Donkey Kong was Osan, a character who Shigeru Miyamoto envisioned as a go-to character he could put in any game if he needed, inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's cameos in films he directed, and mangaka such as Osamu Tezuka reusing characters between works. A lot of people think the Mario name comes from Mario Brothers, but it actually comes from a sales brochure for Donkey Kong dating all the way back to 1981. So can we please stop spreading this fact? Anyways, it sucks that Donkey Kong's music play was cancelled because it looks like it was better than the other games in the trilogy. While they fundamentally fail at their purpose, I feel like the Donkey Band mode would have at least been fun in this game. So why was it cancelled? Well, according to former Hudson Soft employee Ichiro Sakurada, it featured songs from Japanese singer Saiko Matsuda that Nintendo either lost the license to before the intended release date, or didn't even have the rights to use at all. It also would have been hard to change the music because of how very few games pushed the Famicom's memory capabilities at the time. I mean, this was a year 1 1983 game, and there were very few songs to begin with. As for why this person is a reliable source, a cartridge was given to Hudson Soft employees while they were working on the Family Basic peripheral, but sadly the prototype has never surfaced. But back to that flyer I told you about earlier. The red banner at the bottom mentions games like tennis, pinball, golf, and soccer, all of which were released in 1984, except for soccer, which was delayed to 1985. But it also mentions 3 other games that were seemingly never released, slated for March 1984, one of which is bowling. Nothing is known about bowling other than what you could obviously infer from the title. Given that its name falls into the same naming convention as Nintendo's other sports games, and it's actually a complete title unlike the 2 other games I'm about to mention, it's very likely that a prototype exists for this game. I have no clue why it was cancelled. The other 2 games are simply called Space War Game and Adventure Game. My theory is that the Space War game was Stargate by HAL Laboratory. See, originally Nintendo was going to sell the rights to distribute the Famicom in North America to Atari, and commissioned HAL to make ports of Western arcade games like It, Millipede, and Joust to try to sell it to Atari. but they shut down the offer and these games went unreleased until HAL released them on their own without Nintendo in 1987. This version of Joust is actually what inspired them to create Balloon Fight, by the way. Meanwhile, I have no clue what the adventure game could have been. But back to Donkey Kong, now I have to talk about the other, more elusive lost NES game. The Return of Donkey Kong was a game that was mentioned in 2 different publications in 1987 and 1988 respectively. Official Nintendo Player's Guide mentioned the game in its Coming Attractions section, and Nintendo Fan Club News included it in its February/March 1988 issues Sneak Peek section. Now, some people have just theorized that this is just Donkey Kong Classics, a collection featuring the first 2 Donkey Kong games released on the NES in October 1988. However, this theory is immediately shot down by the fact that both sources claim that Donkey Kong himself would be playable. Maybe these publications were fed false information, but who knows. But this game would have marked DK's playable debut. Of course, the character wouldn't actually be playable until Donkey Kong Country: Tropical Freeze. Okay, so for those who don't know, Cranky Kong is the original Donkey Kong, the one who initially kidnapped Pauline, got locked in the cage by Mario, and had beef with Stanley the Bugman. The one who wears the tie is not the same character. The book for the SNES Classic claims that he's Junior's son, but I like to think he's Junior himself. I mean, where is Junior anyways? Whatever. Anyways, I hope this video sparks up more interest in these games. This video is part of this year's Nintendo November series, where I cover canceled and lost NES games. So check out the rest when they come out if you're interested. Also, comment if you caught this video's Easter egg. Thanks for watching.